Guest. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us. Today we're talking about KarenRead and all these crazy developments. Every time we do a big trial on court TV, there is jury drama afterwards. It happened with Murdoch. Now it's happening with KarenRead. But this is a little bit different. This is a little bit different. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the chaos in Canton, and we'll talk about Trooper Proctor, the retrial, everything, because we've not been able to react to all of these latest developments with the tangent. So with us, Al Wunsch the third.
Yo.
And radio legend, Jonesy.
What do you hear? What do you say, gentlemen?
Yes. So this, to me, just going to add more fuel to the fire here. It's going to add more fuel to the fire. As you all know, and everyone's been talking about, now there are 4 of these jurors who have allegedly, in one way or another, come forward to say that they actually reached not guilty verdicts on counts 1 and 3. Counts 1 and 3, they were all in agreement, yet somehow, some way, in the way it all went down inside of that courtroom, that information did not make its way to the judge, didn't make its way to the court, and a mistrial was declared.
Then, and if I don't, and I don't mean to be didactic nor facetious, if you read the notes or heard the notes that they brought to the judge, okay, they never said anything of the kind. What they said was, we cannot agree on the charges, plural.
Well, let me tell you something, Al. Don't forget about count 2, included several different charges.
Okay, that may be the situation. However, you think they would have said, listen, we've agreed on 1 and 3. We don't have 2. And, okay, the big blunder in this is on the defense for not requesting that the jury be.
Was there time?
There certainly would have been time. Look, that would have been the first.
Was there time now? Was there time between when she read the note and then said, I'm going to declare a mistrial? There was no time.
No.
You make time, right?
How do you make time, Jones? You can't make time.
By standing up and hollering over her like I'm doing now.
Under the rules of civil procedure in Massachusetts, when this situation comes up, the judge has the right, may poll the jury, but if any of the counsel request it, she must poll them. So he could have said it at any point in time. Now, granted, I will tell you this, being in that position a number of times, you're not really thinking clearly. You hear, that they haven't come to a guilty plea or a guilty finding, and you're ecstatic as all get out. And, you're very happy in a lot of instances when it is a hung jury, because it is basically a win for the defense in some parts. So you're listening for that. You're not necessarily listening, and thinking ahead of the fact, do I poll the jury on this? But if I was, if I'm sitting there listening to those notes that came in, not one of them led me to believe that they had an agreement on anything. In fact, they said they had no agreement. And that's it there. And why then didn't someone say, hey, wait a minute, there's something going on here? We did agree on 1 and 3, Judge.
Okay. Well, here's my problem with the whole thing. And then we'll see where Jonesy will break the tie here. These jurors, I was a juror, okay? You go in, like I knew a little bit, right? But jurors go in and they know nothing about the process, the procedure. And I'm not blaming this judge in particular. I'm blaming our system of justice in the way we assume and we treat jurors. It's like we turn a blind eye to the fact that these are 12 people who don't know what you do inside this courtroom. We know the judge wears the robe. The judge is in charge. We see lawyers. We hear witnesses. Then you read these ridiculous instructions and send us into a room for 26 hours together. We're not given enough guidance. No jury is given enough guidance. I have seen in some states in these situations where judges have had conversations with the jury, like, okay, you're stuck. Oh, what's the count? Sometimes they actually ask, what's the count? Massachusetts, the way the law is, it's like hands off. You can't talk to the jury about anything. You can't talk to them. It's like I talk to these Massachusetts attorneys and they're like, no, you don't talk to the jury. You can't. And to me, that's a problem. That's the problem, because we bring folks in, we expect them to make this incredibly important decision. And the decision is a combination of determining facts and then applying the law that, by the way, a lot of lawyers don't even understand and can argue about and interpret more than 17 different ways, and expect them to like tie it up with a neat bow and know what to say, what to ask, everything else. There should be a much more methodical process to walk this jury through it, so we don't have miscommunications, and there should be some sort of open dialogue, not getting into the details of what this one said, what that one said, but some open dialogue with the jury. So, we get the truth. I just want the truth. And the truth is, according to these four who have come forward, is that they found her not guilty on 1 and 3. And our system now is going to turn its nose on that and ignore it like it never even happened. And to me, that's outrageous, Jonesy. It's outrageous.
Well, I think, no matter what your instructions are on a jury, I think common sense would bring me to say to everybody in the room, hey, we've agreed on these two counts. Shouldn't we at least tell the judge that and see if that counts?
Yes, exactly.
So you're presuming that a jury knows what a deadlocked jury is?
I think common sense says, they're different charges, and we have this not guilty on 2 of them.
We have different counts, right? We have different counts on a single document.
Right, but shouldn't we advise the judge of that in case the judge says, well, okay.
How about the judge says, hey, let me know how you're doing? Or
how about this? How about this? Write a question, that is logical. Okay, write a question that has a little more detail than we are deadlocked on the charges. We cannot come to an agreement on the charges.
You're blaming the jury. It's the system's fault.
I'm not blaming the jury.
These jurors didn't sign up for it. They got a notice in the mail and came down for $30 a day for 3 months. You owe them more.
I'm out of order. You're out of order, Vinnie.
The system owes these people more.
Podcast is out of order.
The system owes them more.
Augie did not have to die. That's another line from that movie. But
Al, you're part of the problem here because you're in the system. What? You're in the system, and you're blaming the citizens for not understanding how your cockamamie system works.
Oh, please, come on! I can write a sentence, Vin. Are you telling me that
you're a lawyer, Al? Al, you're a liar.
I can write a sentence, for God's sakes. I think anyone that can read and write the English language can write a question and be a little more specific than charges. Not charge.
Have you ever served on a jury, Al?
No. I've had a number of them in front of me.
I have. I now stand up for jurors. It's my thing.
Okay, well, I can't stand up for falling down, but I will say to you that under the circumstances, the defense counsel should have asked the question. Now, I have been in situations where I didn't necessarily want to know.
You don't want to know.
I was just going to ask you that. I was just going to ask you, is there a situation where maybe I don't want the public to know right away what the count is in case it's against me?
Yes, and you have to think about that, okay? But in Massachusetts,
can't do it.
It's publish or perish, because if you don't do it, then it's up to the judge, and the judges may. That's the beautiful thing about it. It says may, quiz the jury on it, okay, poll the jury. But if defense or the state asks for it, then she has to do it. In this case, it's a female, so I can say she has to do it. Okay.
All right, Al, let me ask you this, Al. Let me ask you this. Let's put.
Now it's too late, Vin. You're done.
But let's put aside all the little things. Do you think this is the way our system should work? Do you think that 12 people should reach an agreement that and find someone not guilty, and that person then faces another jury on the same charge?
Absolutely not.
If in fact all 12 agree that, oh yeah, we all agreed they count one, no way. Should she really face trial for that again if all 12, regardless of procedural rules,
Of the
etc.?
rules? Well, aren't we a nation of rules? Okay, and if you don't follow the rules, they're deemed waived.
Aren't you the
That's
one who
not-
said that the Constitution is not a technicality? Aren't you the one who says that all the time, Al?
Yes, I also said that it's not, it's not just a rumor, although
Right.
in some states it is. But I mean, in most instances, it's not a rumor.
Well, according to the Constitution, you can't be tried twice for the same crime.
That's a good point, except that in a situation when you have rules of procedure, look, if she was not guilty on both charges,
You said not to drive our car, Al. You said not to drive our car.
yes,
Do
yes.
you know what I'm referencing here?
No,
I do.
The Brady Bunch episode
Oh,
where Greg gets in trouble. He's reading the album cover, and I think it's Bobby tells on him, and then he is punished. And mom and dad, Mr. and Mrs. Brady, said, "You're not allowed to drive our car anymore," because he was driving dangerously. So then he drives a friend's car. And they said, "We told you couldn't drive the car." And he said, "Well, you said not to drive our car," right? Like, come on.
okay. Well, guess what?
Was Greg
the devil is
smoking
in
at
the
the time?
details, Vin. The devil is in the details.
was
okay.
Greg Brady smoking at the time?
Yeah, he may have been.
Or did
may
he
have
get into an accident? Who's the one that got into the accident with Uncle Fester? When
That was probably-
Robert Reed dropped the briefcase in the courtroom, and the guy with the neck brace, who was Uncle
Oh,
Fester,
yes.
by the way, turned his head to look to see where the noise came from, and the judge goes, "Not okay. This case is over," and that was it. No one dropped the briefcase, Vin. Someone
Yeah.
should have dropped it.
No,
Someone
I'm offended by this because if
You're
all 12
offended by the
agree,
Brady Bunch?
no, I'm offended.
He's a
because-
fan of Uncle Fester.
It's my system of justice. It's our system of justice for the people. Okay. And it should work. And it should be much more friendly to jurors
So you
who
got 4 out of
who are
12, Vin.
summoned. They are
You only got
literally
one-
summoned to court.
You got 4 out of 12. Okay, that's it. That's all I see. Is 4 out of 12. 30%, 33%.
So, okay, we're having two different discussions here. I'm having a discussion based upon a presumption, okay? Let's presume that all 12 agree, okay? If all 12 agree that they agreed that count 1 and count 3 were both not guilty, right? And then they were just moving in and focusing on the charges in count 2, right? And then they were locked in on that, and they didn't know, they couldn't get past it, and they didn't know what to do, so they told the judge.
They didn't tell the judge properly. That's their fault. And also, then the question comes down: is someone have the
But should
the
Lady
balls,
Justice
I would
really be
say,
that blind and
to stand up and say,
what the
"Judge,
jury
poll
did?
the jury, poll the jury"? It would have been very simple, then. Poll the jury. But you didn't want to hear. Sometimes you don't want to hear what they came up with. The fact that it took that long.
This isn't about
Yeah,
strategy. This is
wait a
about the
minute.
truth of what happened.
But
You know,
wait a minute.
it strikes me that polling the jury is like a technicality because it's usually done by the defense when the person's already fried. And I mean, has
It only
ever
happens when they're found guilty. That's the only time I've ever seen it.
right? I mean, have you ever seen it go the defense's way in a guilty when he or she asks for the jury to be polled?
In the pictures.
A state
It's like
can
a
ask for the jury to be
technicality,
polled,
right? But
No, the state can ask for it to be
I
polled.
would agree. I mean, I don't know if you're saying this, Vinnie, but I think that you shouldn't be retried if you're found 12-0 not guilty on a couple of charges, on those charges. However, from watching your show this week from local Massachusetts attorneys, apparently the law there is it has to be voted on and then presented and sealed. And,
Right.
And it wasn't. So technically they can go again.
But does the jury know that? That's the problem. You see, this
Yeah,
is
but
the
the
problem I
lawyers
have.
know that.
You've got
The judge
people.
knows
No,
that. The
you've got
lawyers
people
know
in
that.
robes. People in robes sitting in some appellate court saying, "This is not a verdict unless it is this, and it's sealed, and it's licked, and it's stamped, and it's this, and it's that," which is fine. But the jury doesn't know that. The jury, if this is true, felt that they reached a verdict on 1 and 3, but were never asked about that. They presumed that they had to answer all the questions and they couldn't answer one of them.
Ben, if you don't appeal a play where the guy missed third base before he scored home, okay, and the umpire doesn't say anything, okay, the run counts, correct? Doesn't matter that after the game,
nobody goes to prison after a baseball game.
It doesn't matter if after the game you take a look at it and you go, well, wait a minute, he missed third. Oh yeah, he did miss third.
Ow.
Well, too late, my friend.
We all love baseball, but at the end of the day, no one's going to prison.
Well, some of the teams
this is different level.
Well, let me ask you this about the appeal at third base. Why do you have to appeal whether he touched third base? If the third base umpire sees that he did not, why do they not call it?
Well, sometimes the third base umpire doesn't see it, and the home plate umpire may see it. The home plate umpire cannot make that call unless the appeal comes down. So,
I always thought it was silly, that whole thing with baseball. I mean, the baseball thing, though, you're making a great analogy. It's so absurdly ridiculous that it's a stupid system, and if that absurdity exists in a trial where someone can go away for the rest of their life, then there's something terribly wrong here.
Well, I don't in any way want to see an innocent person in jail, no doubt about it. And if she is indeed innocent, then she should be found innocent. But there has to be you have to follow the rules. You can't cut the rules. Okay, and remember,
the rules supersede the Constitution.
Ben, I'm telling you right now, he who knows the rules rules, and that is the key. And I've learned that very early on because when I played at Don Bosco, they sent the pitchers and catchers to get umpiring cards because they wanted us to have the ability to know the rules just as good as the umpires, because then you can have a conversation with them on a one-to-one level, and it's not a kid arguing something. I'm saying, wait a minute, the rule says this, and then I'm card carrying just like that guy. So it puts us at the same plane, okay, despite the age difference. But it's the rule. He who knows the rules rules, and that's a rule. And if you break it, okay, if the appellate division says it's okay to do it, then by all means, fine. Okay, but the problem is now this. They left that room. They left the sanctity of what they were doing. Now they've seen all the newspaper articles. Now they've seen everything else that they were not supposed to be looking at when they were in that jury box. So now, all of a sudden, it's, oh, yeah, that's the...
Yeah, you could bring a jury back. We brought back the Murdoch jury. We could bring back this jury. Listen, Sonia W.
Do that? I couldn't even listen to you guys after reading her comment. I mean, I couldn't even listen to what you were saying.
Sonia, I haven't gotten to third base in way too long. That's a crime. Now I'm on a tangent.
Play ball. How about the old suicide squeeze?
So, Al, you talk about rules, right? You're talking about rules.
Yes.
Since when do rules override the Constitution?
Constitution is rules.
Is rules, yeah.
No.
Thanks, Ben. That was an interview. It really is.
No. When do you're talking
about another meatball sandwich?
You're talking about some court rules versus the constitutional rights of each individual in this nation, as written in the Constitution by our forefathers.
We are a nation of rules.
So Vinnie, you're saying there has been precedent set in the Murdoch case of bringing a jury back after they had been released?
Yeah, you bring them back to find out if they were interfered with. They brought them back, and the judge questioned them. We saw it.
And that has happened. That has happened. That's not the first time that's ever happened.
Can you have them?
There's criminal investigations that have come up when jurors have been tampered with. You know, and sometimes these mob trials, you see that, and even Clarence Darrow, okay, in one of his famous cases with the bombing situation, they had bribed like 2 jurors. Okay, so. You know, it's not a precedent bringing them back. They certainly can bring them back. The problem is that like anything else, the toothpaste is out of the tube. Okay. And now you've got a situation where they're seeing stuff that they didn't see when they were deliberating. They're now reading stuff that they didn't know about when they were deliberating. Now, all of a sudden, okay, the bloom is off the rose. And if you're in a situation where you were like, well, I voted guilty, but I wasn't really sure, you might say, wait a minute, Proctor is now up on charges. This one's now suspended. This is going on that way. And now you're changed. You know, I definitely think she was not guilty. Okay. I didn't know this stuff because that wasn't evidence in the case. Now they're exposed to evidence that's not part of the case. It's a problem.
Well, they're not going to reconvene and redeliberate. The question is, what happened in that jury room? Did they actually reach a verdict, and did they not understand how to figure out how to express that to the court, or what was going to happen after they sent out this note? Nobody tells them that after you send that note out, after the Tui Rodriguez charge, that the judge is just going to end it, that the judge isn't going to ask you any questions. And that's one of the things that one of the jurors, number 4, that came forward, Allan Jackson, according to Allan Jackson, was saying is that, listen, we didn't expect what happened to happen. Like, we didn't think that they weren't going to ask us about, 1 and 3. We were sending them notes about the charges in 2 that we couldn't agree on. Yeah, and I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is the system is wrong. The men and women in the robes have gotten it wrong through the years. That we don't treat jurors properly. We don't instruct them properly. We don't bring them in and let them know what's going to happen here. We don't question them enough. And the thing is, I've seen it done in other jurisdictions, and it's so refreshing, starting with letting jurors ask questions of the witnesses. Let them get the answers that they want, because they're the ones who have to make the decision. They're the ones who are trying to figure out what happened. They have unanswered questions. We're not getting to the truth.
They are letting that now in a lot of courts.
Yes.
A lot of that in New Jersey.
That's number 1.
They don't get that. Well, just so the people don't think they can stand up and ask a question. You have to write the question out, submit it to the judge, then the judge makes a decision, talking with the attorneys as to whether or not that question should be asked. Okay.
Right. If it's a permissible question, right? There's some guidance there, but a lot of them do get asked. In the Jodi Arias trial, there was direct, there was cross, there was redirect, recross, and then came the most interesting part, which is the jury asking the questions that really mattered, the questions that were unanswered by the questions that were asked by the lawyers.
Well, the questions how much is your artwork?
Yeah. And sometimes they would have like 25 questions, 28 questions. And to me, that's important. We bring these folks in, right? We summon them, and then we want them to tell us what happened. We don't let them ask questions. We leave them in the dark as to the procedure of what they're doing. We give them no guidance in how to deliberate. We don't tell them what's going to happen if they send out this note. I mean, there's so much that we don't do. Well, and whether you want to say it's been upheld by the Supreme Court or not upheld by the Supreme Court, doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right. Things can be overturned all the time, and they are.
The jury asking questions would change the game forever, wouldn't it? I mean, like, it's kind of a game with lawyers. Like, they will ask you what they want you to answer, but they won't ask you the questions that they don't want to go to.
Right.
And if the juries can come along afterward and do that, it changes the game forever.
Yeah, it does. But what is the game? And it's not a game. See, this is it. This is a search for the truth. A jury of your peers come in and they listen to the evidence and they figure out and they tell us what happened, because the two sides obviously don't agree. That's why you're having a trial to begin with. But we handcuff them so much along the way. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd, and it's unfair, and it can lead to things like what may have happened in this case.
All right. So now when you're saying is handcuff, okay, so you're not handcuffing them. You're limiting them to the evidence that has been admitted into the case, and that's admissible. They get a thing at the end of the trial called jury charges, and the jury charges will read to them the law, will read to them examples of the law, okay, and will give them the necessary information to formulate based on the evidence that they have reviewed and the testimony that they have heard, whether or not it falls within those charges.
And how about your state, Al? And I can't recall in this case if they got a written copy of the instructions. Different states do that differently. Some states, they hand them the instructions they give to the jury, which I think they should, right? When I practiced in New Jersey, I don't know if it's changed, Al, but the jury doesn't get the written instructions. The judge just tells them. And in some courts, they don't let the jury take notes on that. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This jury now has to listen to 35 minutes of convoluted jury instructions, which are based upon case law, and it's absurd. They didn't go to law school. They don't watch trials every day like I do. I mean, it's an impossible task that ends up providing results that aren't just. And when I say aren't just, aren't necessarily what the jury intended or has limited what the jury understands they're supposed to do. And anything that does that, I think, is wrong for our system to do. And again, I'm not blaming this judge. This judge very well may have been following, and I believe probably was following the law and the way it is in the state of Massachusetts.
Well, wait a minute.
I don't think I like the idea of the jury being allowed to ask questions for the reasons that you just mentioned. The jury hasn't gone to law school. The jury hasn't seen as many trials as you have. And I'm not sure that I really want them to have the capability of questioning the witnesses after the trial has been presented by the professionals.
Yeah, but you know what, though? I will tell you this, okay, that if I hear the questions that the jury wants to ask, okay, whether or not the judge allows that question to be asked or not allows that question to be asked, okay, that sends a signal to me that it's going one way or another, and I need to do something to put my case in a little bit differently. So, I mean, it's like basically, tipping your hand in poker. So it gives me an opportunity to know where these guys are going and what at least one juror is thinking. And if one's thinking it, there's more than one that's thinking it. So, I mean, it can help trial attorneys. But once again,
I wanted to just help the truth. Adam drives Helen. Happy Friday, fellas. Great to see you, Adam. As we learned, Helen is the truck, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Melly, one of our mod squatters.
Yeah, mod squad. Yay, Mel.
Happy Friday, Melly. Wonderful chat. Hello to the exquisite tangents. Exquisite, Jonesy. Exquisite today.
Well, Vin, if I may, at this juncture, we got a little heated on this whole thing, but I got another thing I got to mention.
Oh, it's only because you were wrong, Al. That's the only reason I got heated. If we would just agree all the time, we wouldn't have this problem now, would we?
Children, when you both speak over one another, then nobody is heard.
That's a good point. But, on this day, that July 12th, 1979, where were you, Vin? July 12th.
If it's 1979, I was probably trying to blow dry my hair backwards for the first time.
Interesting. Jonesy, where were you?
Oh, I was most likely wandering through West Hudson Park in Kearny, New Jersey.
Okay. This date in 1979, the Disco Demolition Night.
Oh, yeah.
The Disco Demolition Night at the Chicago White Sox game, a doubleheader, okay, where
a radio event.
A DJ, okay, by the name of Steve Dahl, who had been fired from a radio station that went from rock to disco, set up this thing to try to get people to show up to the White Sox because they were horrible, and so they weren't getting attendance. They had a 98-cent admission night, and you could bring all the disco albums you wanted, and they collected them and then put them into a device and then exploded, okay, with dynamite, this thing. The place went nuts. They rioted the field, Okay, and there was supposed to be, they were thinking 20,000 people. Over 55,000 people came.
Wasn't it also like cheap beer night as well?
No.
Yes.
That wasn't cheap beer night. That wasn't cheap beer night. That was a Cleveland. That was a Cleveland Indian 10-cent beer night. Okay, that was a different thing. This though, they allowed them to come in. They were throwing stuff. They were using the albums and throwing them at the players. Okay, one of our favorites, Rusty Staub, went back to his dugout and said, anybody coming out on the field should be wearing a batting helmet because it's dangerous out there.
Who was
You got hit with
Rusty-
Donna
who was
Summer?
Rusty playing for?
I'm sorry?
Who was Rusty playing for? What team?
Tigers.
Did Cleveland play?
Detroit Tigers. Detroit
Oh,
Tigers.
Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago's playing the Detroit Tigers, and it's the only game, the last game in American League history that the second game was forfeited.
Wow.
Wow, Detroit, the home of Motown. They show up in Chicago and they have disco albums thrown at their heads.
And what's interesting is if you see the documentaries that were done about the thing, they said
it's mentioned in the Bee Gees documentary as well.
Yep.
Well, they were saying that people didn't even bring disco albums. They brought Kiss. They brought Kansas. They brought
they had a disco hit.
So you would have all of these like different like things going on. They couldn't collect enough of the albums. There was way too many people. And what happened was that Bill Veeck, the owner of Chicago White Sox, put the security on the outside to stop people from coming in, which meant that there was no security to keep them from going on the field.
Oh,
And
wow.
then they went on the field and destroyed the field. Okay, so
that's known kind of as the day disco died, but it never died in New Jersey because those disco records continued to play. When I got my ID in the early 80s and they were still playing them. Adam Drives Helen, best mod squad in the game, squad up. And look at Kayla. Kayla Nicole from New Zealand. Bloody Tangents got me here in New Zealand at 4:30 a.m. watching y'all live because I can't miss one. Y'all make my day.
nice.
Oh, that's nice.
That is nice to hear,
Nice.
Kayla. And Lissy B, 100% right. Vinnie.
So you're right about everything because
Should I put a poll up?
Were you right about
up?
were you right? Oh, here we go again.
sure.
Were you right about the disco craze still being in New Jersey in 1979? Were you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Were you
my
still putting
sisters did.
10X in your hair back in 1979?
Yes, I was. Absolutely.
You're still wearing your members only jacket and your whatchamacallit Capizios.
Absolutely.
What color were your
No
Capizios?
doubt.
Silver, black, red.
Okay.
Now,
Jordache or Sassoon.
I just think that disco night was an absolute disaster. It was a horrible thing. It was an attack at a very, very fun. I mean, I'm not a disco person, but the disco clubs were great, especially in New York and New Jersey. They were phenomenal. Studio 54 and 2001 and Soap Factory. All of those places were just phenomenal fun. And to have these idiots go out there and start yelling disco sucks, it didn't make any sense to me.
Well, beyond being a crazy event, it was divisive and hateful.
Yeah. By the way, I just posted the poll. Who is right, Vinnie, Al, or neither? You go onto the page, into the community tab. I'm sure Gen X to the seventh power, and Frankie Figs and Melly will post it in the chat how you can get to the official poll here. Who is right, Vinnie, Al, or neither?
But
Now, if they vote neither, do I get a vote?
That's your vote.
You're neither.
You're
That's
neither.
who you are. You're Nigel Neither. That's your new name.
Excellent.
You're Switzerland.
But I'm curious though, Jonesy, as one of the first pioneers of the disco music scene on the radio, what you thought about that whole thing back in '79 when it was going on.
I'm sure there was a part of me that hated it because like the whole disco sucked movement. I mean, I went to school in Kearney and it was filled with Deadheads and Zeppelin fans. So it was kind of difficult to be into anything else. We were in, I did a disco radio show, but we were more into like punk and new wave at the time, and we were hated for that. So I hated the whole idea of like a genre of music being attacked, especially a genre that I had embraced at one point. But I also thought it was like really exciting and wild and cool that this would happen, that a radio DJ could rile up enough people to cause them to damn near blow up a stadium.
Yeah.
It was a radio event. It was the power of radio that did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
My school was split. You had to decide. You were rock or disco. There were no other choices. And you had to make your decision. Yeah. So most of the Italians, we went disco. The non-Italians went rock. That's just the way it was.
Yeah, well, and what the argument was that they were using homophobic statements about disco and things along that, and attacking it from that standpoint.
Well,
but as you're pointing out, Vinnie, in New Jersey, it was an Italian thing, and it was wasn't certainly a homophobic thing. It was where the guys went to meet the girls with the big hair at the discos.
Exactly. Okay. So there's something else that's happening. And Al, for the folks who are watching for the first time, thank you so much. Please subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you know when we're going on. That bell does work really well. And Facebook, you can share and follow. And X, obviously, re-X us or Rex us. So Al is an actual historian. And I'm going to play for you now something that happened this week. And all of this, the whole KarenRead case, it's all has divided this community. It's torn neighbors against neighbors, family members against family members. It's taken on a life of its own. But where it also manifests itself, not just in the streets outside the courthouse, but is at the town meetings. The town, I think they call them the town select meetings, whatever they call it. It's like your local town council meeting, right? So they've got one of these meetings, and one of the members of the board is Chris Albert. I think Chris Albert, who's the pizza guy, who didn't go to the house that night, but it's his brother's house. So he's one of the out, but he's on the committee. But so I just want to show you. And as it starts to play, raise your hand if you need to comment historically, Al, okay? And you'll know what I mean once I start playing it, okay? So this is the Canton town meeting from this week, in part. A lot of people talking about this. Let's take a look.
Ms. O'Donnell?
The American Revolution began in 1775 as an open conflict between the United 13 colonies and Great Britain. Many factors played a role in the desires to fight for independence. Not only did these issues lead to a war, but they also shaped the very foundation of the United States of America. The Americans felt that they should have equal rights to the Englishmen. The British, on the other hand, thought that the colonies were created to be used in the ways that best suited the Crown and the Parliament. This seems a lot like our current reality in Canton. This conflict embodied in one of the rallying cries of the American Revolution: no taxation without representation.
Okay, Al, go ahead.
Okay. Wow. I mean, a little, you talk about it that I get yelled at for going off on a tangent. This is a tangent. Okay.
But she was historically correct, right?
She was historically correct with regards to, we did have rights, but there were certain rights that we did not have. And we did not have representation. So the line, no taxation without representation, was a big deal. The other thing was, it was a taxing thing. Okay. So that was the biggest problem with regards to up in the northern colonies and even in the southern colonies, was what was called the Stamp Act, which would require anytime you had a piece of paper, you had to affix a stamp that you had to buy from the Crown that would authorize you to, it made the paper official. So you had to pay for that, and they didn't have to do that in England. So the colonies were getting upset because of the fact that they were being taxed without having representation in the Parliament to say, hey, wait a minute, why are we getting this? You guys don't have it, whatever the situation is. But on the other end of the food chain, the British were saying, listen, you know, we're protecting you. We have all these troops there that are keeping the Indians out, or as we should call them, the Native Americans, keeping them out of your colonies. We're protecting you. We are giving you, you know, rights, and we brought law, we brought order, we brought everything with regards to our civilization over there, and we set it up. That should be enough. It wasn't. And then you started having people rebel, and that's where you get the Boston Tea Party, okay? Because tea was was a very highly taxed item. And so what they did was they went on the ships, they were dressed as Native Americans, and they threw all the tea overboard. It cost almost, the damages were over $1 million to the British. That's how much tea was thrown overboard. Okay, and then
Is that why the water's so brown there still?
With the Charles, I don't know if that's necessarily the situation for that, but nonetheless,
imagine all the overly caffeinated aquatic life.
yes, the cod were overly caffeined. Okay, yes, the cod was going crazy. Okay, and so you know it went down on there, and then they ended up going after the different leaders and imprisoning them without a jury trial and things along those lines. You finally have the Boston Massacre. Okay, the Boston Massacre was a bunch of individuals started throwing snowballs at the British. But what they don't tell you in the history books is that not only were they throwing snowballs, but they were putting rocks inside the snowballs, and they were throwing them at the British soldiers.
Well, all the bad kids did that.
The soldiers ended up firing, and they killed a number of people. They went to trial, and they were acquitted. The interesting thing on this is that the attorney who represented the British soldiers who fired upon these groups was none other than John Adams.
Oh, I thought it was Adam Lally.
No, it was John Adams. John Adams, the man who became the second president of the United States, the man that pushed through the Declaration of Independence, actually represented the British soldiers in the hearing on the Boston Massacre.
These lawyers will take any case for money. That's the way they are. They'll do anything for money, Jonesy. That's the.
Everybody hates a lawyer until you need one.
It was his partner Quincy and Adams, and then of course he named his son John Quincy Adams. But Quincy was his partner, and the two of them represented.
You know, every time he says the word Quincy, I just can't help but think of Jack Klugman.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
I can't. I know. It's like I'm
you have to. Right? All right, let's listen to more.
To me, this sounds like our current day Canton. While we pay all our taxes, our services, leaders, and police departments only service the entitled, selected few, while those entitled in our governance try to silence our concerns. Another driving force behind the revolution was an outcry against the judicial system that was in place, offering yet another airy comparison, ironically enough, involving 6 British soldiers. After 6 British soldiers were acquitted and 2 dishonorably discharged for the Boston Massacre, the British government changed the rules. From then on, officers accused of any offense in the colonies would be sent to England for trial.
Can I add a point on this? No, she doesn't mention that John Adams represented the British soldiers in that. Okay, she is correct that what ended up happening after that, you know, we had another thing in the colonies that was called quartering. Okay, so what would happen is British soldiers could come in and require you to put them up in your home,
for a quarter?
and quarter them. Okay, and that was one of the requirements that the British had put upon as basically a punishment on what was going on with regards to the Boston Tea Party and the rebelling against the Stamp Act and the tar and feathering, the tax people, okay, that represented the crown. That was another thing that went on. So, you know, they got fed up and they started pulling that. Look, it was a very, very tenuous time. The United States got a little at the time, the colonies got a little antsy, okay, and decided that they didn't want to be part of England. Thank God, and we had this great nation.
Do you think that can happen in Canton? Let's take a listen.
Okay.
This meant that fewer witnesses would be on hand to give their accounts of the events and led to even fewer convictions. Wouldn't it be nice to watch Proctor's hearings for his indiscretions? This makes matters even worse. Jury trials were replaced with verdicts and punishments handed down directly by colony judges. Over time, the colonial authorities lost power over this as well, because the judges were known to be chosen, paid, and supervised by the British government. Again, dauntingly familiar. The right to a fair trial by jury of their peers was no longer possible to many. John Adams once said, "Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of the facts and the evidence." What frightens me most is even after watching the same trial for 10 weeks, so many still blindly trust and follow the corrupt and avoid the facts and evidence that would have convicted KarenRead. There is lack of it. To bring justice for John O'Keefe, rather, they chose to keep supporting those who have factually been proven to be corrupt and dirty.
Thank you, Ms. O'Donnell.
To those
Ms. O'Donnell, that's it.
who find our fight for
O'Donnell,
truth,
I'm going to ask you to
justice,
settle down.
and our American rights
I'm going to ask you to leave,
so
Ms. O'Donnell.
unacceptable to tonight.
Officer.
I quote Captain John Paul Jones, 1779. I have not begun to fight.
Thank you, Ms. O'Donnell.
Isn't it? I have not yet begun to fight.
That sounded like the beginning of our show.
I thought it was I have not yet begun to fight.
Yeah, that John Paul Jones did say that.
Now, why is she going there? I mean, like, why did she try to make that analogy?
Well, she got to the point where she was just stringing along any quotes that would kind of fit in a thing. Look, I give her credit. She put together a nice little piece.
College report.
I don't think that, I mean, right now, is she advocating that we should overthrow the government of Massachusetts? I mean, is she advocating that we should overthrow the government of the United States? I mean, I don't know where you're going with regards to that.
Okay.
It's a little far-fetched.
Watch what happens next. You ready?
Yes.
Things get a little louder in the meeting as we continue to watch.
Bye-bye.
I'm following the rules. We live in America, dude. Question on history.
Ms. O'Donnell, please.
He's talking to me, but I will stay quiet. No need to leave. Exercising my First Amendment.
Ms. O'Donnell.
Okay, I'm going to speak. I'm going to speak now.
Ms. O'Donnell, you're being disruptive to the meeting. I'm asking you to leave. Thank you. Thank you.
I have nothing to leave for. I haven't broken any laws.
Okay.
I'm answering you. I said I would stand here quietly. I will stand here quietly.
She only went over a few minutes, a minute. Okay, I'm going to, come on, will you, we're in crisis for crying out loud. I know it's my imagination. I know it's my imagination.
All right, folks, please be respectful. Ms. Lombardi, this is it.
Yes, thank you. Okay, listen, Rita Lombardi, and I can't believe I'm standing here about to say what I'm going to say. My ancestry goes back in this town to the very early 1900s, and I've always had respect for the Canton Police and the Fire Department because my ancestors served on them proudly, and I always admired them. And I'm shocked that I'm having this discussion right now. But anyways, the issues that we've had in town relate to safety and trust issues. And last week or whatever, you approved the police chief's contract, and many of us were opposed to that. And I just want to share some of the reasons why we have trust issues here. In 2018, the Canton Police Department responded to a car accident on Pleasant Street near Meadows, but did not locate the driver. An hour or so later, a passerby located the body of Craig Casey. This last year, when questioned by a concerned citizen, Chief Rafferty's response was, it wouldn't have made a difference to his survival. Instead of owning this failure, That's what that was her explanation. In 2021, the Canton Police Department ruled Sandra Birchmore's death a suicide. It was recently confirmed that Sandra was in fact murdered, something many citizens already knew. Yet there has been zero acknowledgement of this policing failure by Chief Rafferty or an apology to Sandra's family that I am aware of. In 2022, the Canton Police Department responded to the scene of Officer John O'Keefe's murder. The mishandling of the crime scene, the investigation, and the evidence collection was gross incompetence at best and will be taught in criminal law classes for decades to come on how not to handle a murder crime scene. Instead of Chief Rafferty addressing these performance issues with appropriate corrective action, many, if not all involved, have been promoted. In any organization, rewarding poor performance not only damages employee morale, it increases employee turnover, both of which are extremely costly. Canton PD has an 18% turnover in the past 2 years. Oftentimes, it is your best employees who seek employment elsewhere.
Al, you represent a lot of police officers. 18%. Is that a high rate of turnover in the department?
No, not really. Because you know what? The thing is this, a lot of these guys are looking to get in, and they get in on a department where the pay is not great, and then they're able to move to a place where they get a higher pay. So they're the one thing about police officers is they're always constantly looking for a better job, one that's going to give them more pay. There's a department in Bergen County that has a very low salary, but it's easier to get in, okay, at the ground level, because nobody applies there. And so they apply there, they get on that job, and then they start looking for what's called a lateral transfer.
So do these cops get better jobs if they get more collars?
No, that's not. No one really looks at that. I'll be honest with you. What they're looking at is
every cop show I watched growing up. Jonesy, do you agree? It's all about getting the collar. Who's going to get the collar?
Yeah. And if you share your collar with somebody out of the kindness of your heart, that's like doing somebody like a major league solid.
Yeah, that's the 1970s. Okay, when you were taking a look at things along those lines, they don't have quotas. There's no more quotas, allegedly. I mean,
they get a collar.
But I mean, but what about ring around the collar, Ben? What about that? Is that okay?
Hey, I'm beating you right now, Al. 77% to 4%.
Well, it's the home.
Jonesy's got 19 as neither.
It's the home team there, you know. Hey, I got 2 words for you if you want to talk TV detectives. Barney Miller. I've been revisiting it. I've been revisiting every night, and it is so good.
And Abe Vigoda is only like 35 years old in that.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Tessio.
Yeah, that was a well-written and acted show. I think it was popular, but I don't think it got the accolades that it really deserved back in its time. Like it did well, obviously, but like to me, it was like top notch. Those guys were like great characters.
Absolutely. I was a student of like TV and the TV Guide, and I'd read all about it and everything. And supposedly back then, most police, when they were polled as to their favorite, most realistic TV detectives, said Barney Miller.
Barney Miller.
Because it's not all like bang, bang, shoot them up. It's they're regular people going through their day and sharing a couple of laughs if they can.
Exactly. Tracy Smith, thank you so much, Tracy. Thanks for watching. Okay, I'm going to get to a couple. We're going to continue listening to that in a second, but here's Dolores. Vinnie, I love disco. My brother hated it. We loved rock, and he loved rock and still does. He was in a band in Boston, both Italian American. Interesting. So there was a split. Now, the members of KISS, they had a disco record. I think it was forced on them. They're really rockers. But are some of them Italian?
What? Were some of the members Italian? Well, Gina's from Israel.
Right. And Ace Frehley's not Italian.
I'm not sure about.
They're from New York. I mean, that might be one.
Frehley might be. Frehley might be
Italian.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Yeah,
it's possible. I'm not really sure about that, but I do know that they met. They got together from an ad in the Village Voice.
Right.
You know, there two
New
of them
York.
were living in Chelsea, and they took out an ad for other members, and I think that's how Ace and or Peter Criss joined the band.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, isn't that
That
cool? You answered an ad in the Village Voice like so many other tens of thousands. For those who don't know, it was a arts-based magazine out of the Village in New York City, and people would answer ads to be in bands and all that, and these guys hit.
My band, Melody Maker. That's where I got it. Put an ad out, and then they answered. The brothers in Rutherford answered, and then the Legals were formed.
Well, the thing
And
about
we
the
didn't do
Kiss,
any disco.
the thing about the Kiss Disco song, though, is the last time I saw them, which was the final tour, they stated on stage that this is our most popular song worldwide.
What was it? I was made for loving you, baby.
Loving
Is that
You, yeah, which is a great song. All it is they turn up the bass a little bit and they add a little electronic tom-toms.
But you know, like, let's face it, Kiss was always looking at a way to hit what was going to sell records at any point in time. I mean, then they took the makeup off, then they put the makeup back on. They were ingenious with regards to their merchandising and ingenious with regards to their albums.
They took the makeup off in the 80s when I worked at a recording studio where a lot of hair bands recorded, metal bands. And so they took the makeup off to be accepted by that crowd as more legit. And then years passed by and that trend passed. And they were brilliant enough to show up on MTV, I think it was with Tony Bennett, in full makeup and outfits for the first time in ages. And the audience went nuts.
They went nuts. Open sidebar. I'm ready to hear Jonesy. Open sidebar wants more Jonesy.
Okay, well, it's kind of like when the Undertaker put his death makeup back on.
And a big thanks again to Melly, Frankie Figs, and
Melly
to the 7th.
Yay, the Mod Squad.
Yes, indeed.
Tracy.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Vin, can I throw this out here since we were talking about history? Because today also is the day that the Medal of Honor was officially signed into law. The Medal of Honor, which is the cornerstone of our military, the men, and unfortunately there was only one woman who ever got it, and then it was taken away from her.
Really?
Yeah, she was a doctor. She would have been given the Presidential Medal of Freedom if they had that back then. Okay, it was in the 1860s, 1870s. And they gave it to her for all the work she did during the Civil War. And it really was a Medal of Freedom because she was never in combat. And the Medal of Honor was always for the individuals that were in combat. We've had 40 million Americans that have served this country since the Civil War. And there's only approximately 3,500 people that have received the Medal of Honor. The most was from the Civil War. Okay, there were 1,500 that got it during that. Interestingly enough, the first was a guy by the name of Jacob Parrott, who got it and for stealing a train out of Georgia, okay, and wrecking up all of the railway lines for the Confederates with a number of other people from Ohio. They were subsequently captured, and 4 of them were hung. And what's interesting about that is he's the first. 2 of the individuals that were hung by the Confederates just got their Medals of Honor the other day in a ceremony by Joe Biden. That was an oversight that they didn't get it. And so these 2 that given up their lives got it. Interesting point, the first person to get 2 Medals of Honor was none other than Thomas Custer, brother of George Armstrong Custer. Okay, and back in those days, if you were able to
get a Colonel Mustard?
No, Custer, not Mustard.
Oh, not Colonel Mustard. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
I'm getting confused.
His brother was able to, in the heat of battle, snag 2 of the enemy's colors. Okay, and he was given 2 Medals of Honor. He subsequently met a horrendous death at the Little Bighorn with his brother and his baby brother. And the Indians proceeded to destroy his body, rip out his heart, and then eat it because he was a Custer family.
Custer. Tax cut loves Adam 12.
His body was so badly attacked and decimated, the only way they knew it was him was because a TC was on his wrist, which he had always done in case he was ever going to be killed in battle. He wanted to make sure that they would be able to identify him, and that was his Thomas Custer. Okay, two groups of fathers and sons have gotten the Medal of Honor. Arthur MacArthur and Douglas MacArthur was also the oldest individual to have gotten the Medal of Honor at 62, and Teddy Roosevelt and Teddy Roosevelt Jr. Both got the Medal of Honor. So there's two family groups. Youngest person to get it, Vin? What do you think the youngest person to get the Medal of Honor is?
Leo DiCaprio.
Leo DiCaprio is not correct. Jonesy?
Johnny
Would you
Depp.
like to phone a friend?
Who?
Would you like to phone a friend?
Yes, I'll phone Al.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
What's the question, Jonesy?
So I need to know who the youngest person to win the Medal of Honor was.
Okay, Willie Johnson, who received it when he was 13 years of age. He was a drummer boy during a battle in the Civil War, and rallied the troops as they were being attacked by the Confederates, and stayed on the battlefield during the entire time by playing the drums to try to keep them in order. And Lincoln found out about it and said, "We got to give this kid an award."
And he's the inspiration for the sweet song "Little Willie."
Little Willie, don't know. That's correct.
No.
Now the second youngest to get it.
We're not going to the second youngest. I gotta
17 years of age. A Marine at 17 years of age received it for jumping on a grenade that was thrown into his foxhole to save his friends in the foxhole with him.
I'm chomping at the bit to talk about something more important. Adam 12, Jack Webb, one of the greatest 30-minute cop shows ever. Love it. I can't disagree with you, but Barney Miller, funny. Barney Miller is kind of a different thing. But Adam 12.
Wait a minute. Adam 12 had its comedic parts.
It did, but much of it was also unintentional in Jack Webb productions. Much of the dragnet humor that people laugh at today was unintentional. It was like him making fun of hippies or druggies, and
but like Gary Crosby. Right, he was on Adam 12, and he was sort of the comic foil of the group. And there was a couple of episodes, if I'm not wrong, with Frank Sinatra Jr.
I believe you are correct. You're definitely correct about Crosby, but more importantly, Car 54. Car 54, one of the greatest shows of all time. And back in like that era.
I don't know if you can go that far, Jonesy. One of the greatest shows of all time.
Well,
I think that's a little stretch.
Well, here's my defense of that. If you watch shows from around that period, like Johnny Staccato, the production value, the writing, the acting, the plot line, everything is by far superior to what television, primetime television became when they dumbed it all down. It was like movie level productions.
You people watching at home, Fred Gwynn and Al Lewis, Grandpa Al Lewis, right? We're in Car 54.
Yes. Nipsey Russell also.
He was also the judge in My Cousin Vinny. Denise,
correct. He was also Herman Munster. What?
Denise Pagan, Al, you have to disagree with everything.
Say no, that's not true.
I disagree with that.
I mean, she said, that was a softball down the middle, right? Like, that's not true.
But thank you. I appreciate you writing some stuff for me, Jonesy. That's always helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I can't remember my lines all the time, and we rehearse many hours before we come on the stage with you fine people.
Yes,
but I don't remember all my lines. But Jonesy is very good. Sometimes I sit there and I go, line, and Jonesy will feed it to me, so it works out.
Peas and carrots.
Jude wasn't even a twinkle in my dad's eyes in the 70s. Oh, we've got a youngster here, Jude.
Hey,
Thank you so much. Blue. Here we go.
Yeah.
Blue. I'm late to this one. I try not to miss a tangent podcast. What's the next step with Karen, and when do you think the retrial will happen? The next step is July 22nd. So in 10 days, they'll be back in court. The
Correct.
defense has made this motion. I believe the judge will summarily dismiss this on legal grounds based upon the precedent that exists in the state of Massachusetts. I believe
Well,
the
the
defense.
rules that exist, and that's not a precedent, it's the rules that exist in the state of Massachusetts.
I have a crazy hypothetical, and Vinnie, you're a former prosecutor.
So am I.
So, you're a former prosecutor as well?
Yes.
Okay.
15 years.
So here's a crazy question for you. Now they can't do, if it was proven that it's 12-0 not guilty, and they can't do anything about it, and they can't reconvene them and have the charge stick, be official. Is it possible in any world, in a fantasy world, that the prosecution could do the right thing and say, well, a jury of their peers found them 12-0, not guilty, so we are going to proceed on the lesser charge?
Here's how I would answer that, Jonesy, and I think you bring up another great point that I wanted to bring up, which is the ethics of it. So if, and again, this is a leap at this point. If it is determined that all 12, right, did agree, I think there's a moment of ethical pause for the prosecutor at that moment to decide whether or not to go forward with that top charge. Legally, likely will be able to, right, based upon the precedent in Massachusetts. So, but I believe, because you want the truth, and the truth is what you are married to, and if the jury, 12 of them in a case that you tried, all said not guilty, and you're convinced that they all said not guilty, I feel like ethically you should just proceed the way the case should have proceeded to begin with anyway. And just with count 2.
So that is possible.
Yeah,
No,
I didn't think
prosecutor can dismiss it.
anything is
Prosecutor can dismiss.
possible.
Well, I didn't
But,
think anybody ever does the right thing. I just thought, like, the game, as I call it in judicial trials, is we're going to convict your ass, and the other side is like, he's walking no matter what.
Unfortunately, that is the situation, but it's, like, the prosecution has to follow the rules, just like the defense has to follow the rules. Okay,
Right.
and that's where
The
the
rules
problem
allow
comes.
them to
And
do
the
this.
problem is that there's a thing that we call in the law, ladies and gentlemen, called the floodgates argument. Okay, floodgates. Okay, that means that if you let something go, then the walls part and the flood comes in, and then it's chaos, and it's a problem. Okay, and that's where this is going to be. The state is not going to be able to. the state is not going to be able to. Okay, not follow the rules. If they do that, they are going to be in a problem in every other trial that they have. Now, if the Supreme Court, okay, or the highest court reviews this, or the appellate court reviews this, and says that factually this case is so unique that we can do that here, I mean, the odds of a case like this happening again, obviously, are probably pretty slim. They may be able to get away with something like that, but they're not going to concede that. They can't concede that. So they're going to have to fight, whether they're morally right, ethically right, or whatever. They're procedurally correct, and they're going to have to argue on the procedure.
Breaking news. Let's go to Jonesy. We've got some early poll results coming in. Jonesy, what can you tell us?
Well, it appears the people have been asked who is right, and it's Vinnie or Al, and it appears that 75% of the people polled say Vinnie is right. 5% say that Al is right, and 20% says neither of you are correct, which means I get 20% vote.
Yeah.
You're the third party candidate.
I didn't say anything. I did the smart thing. I didn't say nothing.
Al, you're getting beat by the third party candidate. RFK Jr. is beating you right now. Just to bring it all back.
All right,
By
so
the way, I'm going to get back to some of these great comments that we have. Somebody, where is it? There's a great one here.
gee, I wonder what what they had to say. I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, for you, those of you scoring at home, it will be an attack on me
No, not at all. Martin wants to know who was the third youngest.
That's got to be a tie. If you were up to 17 years old, I would say that the third one has to be a tie.
Yeah, no, 17 is the youngest. He actually was 5 days after his 17th birthday, and he jumps on a grenade. I mean, just to find somebody like that at that age to do that ultimately most heroic thing is just incredible. I mean,
yeah. Well,
all
you got to see something like that. All you got to do is flip on True TV.
True TV.
Yeah, it's that station that took over Court TV that does like stunt programming where people do.
Well,
they're
not jumping. But they're not jumping on a grenade to save their buddies.
Not to save their buddies.
I just have to put Robert always posts the longest messages, and I just want to acknowledge that. Yeah, we do read them, Robert. We just don't have time to read all of them on the air. And sometimes some of the information isn't, Robert, I found not 100% right. But here he says also Vinnie and Albert and Jonesy. We got more information that Allan Jackson is scheduled to be on MSNBC and Ari Melber tonight at 6 p.m. and 3 p.m. Also, just according to Court TV, and Matt Johnson just learned that an emergency hearing in the KarenRead case is scheduled for Monday morning in Boston at 9 a.m. and 6 a.m. Pacific. We'll keep you posted. And just in, according to Court TV in Baltimore, Maryland, Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief Ben Crew has just learned, and then he ran out of characters.
Well, the 22nd is Monday, right? The 22nd is Monday. So that's, we've already, Vinny, we already mentioned that the next hearing is on the 22nd.
22nd, yep. Yeah, so that's good. Thank you, Robert. We appreciate Robert watching and participating each week. He does a nice
I
job.
appreciate anyone that's in that 5 that voted for me. The rest of you.
Gen X loves crazy hypotheticals. What if?
Yes. Yes. That's what the law is all about. What if?
What if? And
We must
Gen
follow
X,
the
put up the
rules.
poll if you want to vote on who's right and who's wrong. By the way, we were talking about it's interesting, Al, that you mentioned the death of disco as
Yes.
we get close to the end of this podcast, because last week's poll, and let me go get those results too. 1 second. I'm just grabbing some results here. I don't have an easy way to do this, so I got to do it the old-fashioned way here. So just give me a moment, folks, as I sort of spin plates, kick rocks, as we call it in the biz, right, Jonesy? That's what I'm doing right now.
Plates. I miss spinning plate acts. Every variety show would have an act that would spin plates, and boy, was it exciting as a child. They should bring it back. In fact, we should do it at the convention. We'll learn how to spin plates.
Learn
That'll
how
get
to.
people attracted to our booth.
Indeed.
Yeah, they're gonna be very attracted to the booth. They throw things at me.
Okay, so I want to bring
We'll
this
put you in a cage.
Bring this in right now. I want to show you this other poll. This is on the theme song, on the results. And so you got Lowdown, and these are the theme songs that we played last week, and then we had the poll. Funkadelic and Weezer split at 19, but now drop out. Disco Mix beats both of them. So I think this week we need to have a battle of the bands, Lowdown Mix versus the Disco Mix, right?
Look at that, Al. Look at that, Al. Those songs got at least 4 times as many votes as you.
What should we have? No, we have the choice. It's the Lowdown Mix, the Disco Mix, or Al. Those would be the choices. I'm going to do that, Paul. We'll put that up. I'll post that right now since I learned how to make these polls. I'm a little bit out of control. I will admit it.
Yes, a little bit.
Vote. All right, here we go. Vote for theme song.
I don't know if you should go to the
Ben,
point
Ben,
where
can
you're
I
gonna vote somebody off the
ask a
island.
question? Can I ask a question with regards to the third youngest Medal of Honor recipient?
Yes, please.
From the 20th, 21st century, or from the Civil War era? Because there was a guy who got it at 16, but Lucas is the youngest from the 20th century forward time. So Lucas would technically be third if we're going to go from the start of this in 1863, and James Aloysius Walsh would be number 2.
Jimmy Walsh. Excellent. All right, so ready for the Battle of the Bands. I want to get them out there so people have time to vote. I put the poll up on the songs. So we will begin with, it's actually, it's the returning champion. It has been the champion since day one, but it was also the first one. So I think a lot of people fell in love with, your first love. It's hard to forget your first love. And I think that's a slightly unfair advantage that this particular mix has had throughout, but it is what it is. This was the first one. So once again, these are prospective theme songs for Vinnie and the Tangent. We begin, of course, with the Lowdown Mix.
It's Vinnie and the Tangent, True Crime Podcast.
People are dancing already.
Vinnie has the blue eyes, out cracks the jokes. Jonesy stays behind his shades, entertaining all the folks. It's Vinnie and the Tangent, True Crime Podcast. Load up all your comments, hit those super chats. Let's go smash that like button, so we can all have a blast. Vinnie, Allan, Jonesy on the job. They're the Sugar Hill gang of true crime. They're telling stories of days gone by. They take crime and turn into a good old time. It's Vinnie and the Tangent.
Vinnie Pohl and
This is, as I said, Depeche Al mode.
It's Vinnie and the Tangent.
Erasure. I mean, all of those great bands. The Pet Shop Boys. All of those types of phenomenal groups. Okay, that's what this reminds me of.
It's the Tangent.
Just Neil Tennant.
Okay. That's the first one. So now the challenger, and I am now known as Vinnie Pohl Itan. All these polls I'm doing. Let's do the next one, which did very well last week for the first time. It's the Disco Mix.
Trying to find my disco ball.
There you have it. Your two choices. The poll is up.
I went to get my members only jacket and my disco ball, and I could not find it quick enough. I apologize. I should have had that out and ready. We'll have it for the next show.
All right. Now, Ben has a great idea here. The Tangents will have to do a music video to go along with the jingle. Put up the poll to see if the community wants a music video. Yeah. I'm going to put up a poll to see if you want me to put up more polls.
I'll answer on that poll. I will tell you that.
We did a video once.
Wait, here's a poll, ladies and gentlemen, to tell Vinnie what to do with his polls. Okay.
Vinnie, you shot a video of the radio crew once at Court TV for some sort of like internet thing, and what you had us do is walk slow motion through the newsroom. So you didn't actually slow it down to slow motion. We actually walked in slow motion.
Oh my God.
A tax cut. I can't believe this. This is
like
amazing.
Anchorman. I mean, that really is. That's like something right out of Anchorman.
Anchorman.
I
Tax
need to go,
cut. is talking about the disco version. This is plagiarized from DJ Save My Life, which is one of my favorite
I don't
songs.
actually hear that. Hey, Vinny, have you ever heard the a cappella version of that?
Last night,
I'll do
DJ
it now.
Save My Life.
Oh, it's outstanding. It's really powerful. But I'd like to go on a tangent. You know, I've been watching this week, and you're doing Alec Baldwin. That Vinny was once on like on a Law and Order episode, and one of the things you told me was they set up the shots, they go through all the direction, and then Chris North walks in as the major actor and takes over everything. And I think that kind of relates to what you're covering this week. And also, you should follow up on that dude last night who told you that he has a movie part for you.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. You remember, Jonesy, how I got on Law and Order was I had the producer of Law and Order on our radio show.
Yeah.
And then live on the air guilted him into putting me on, and they picked me up the next morning. They sent a car for me, brought me up to the Bronx.
You had said to him that they talked about how everybody in New York has been on Law and Order, and you were like, well, I haven't, I'm the only one. And then you were on the next day.
Well, it's good. The producer guy that had talked about the movie that Vinny could possibly be in. It's the movie that you actually put quarters in. And
the Italian Stallion. I think they called it the Italian Stallion.
And it's really good. And I know I was in it, and under my stage name of Rex the Human Tripod. But it was one of those things that Vinny would be very good in a movie like that with the blue eyes.
Well, I haven't done a movie. I've done television, obviously live television, scripted television on Law and Order. I've been in the music business. I've made records. I've been on records. I've been in books. I've been mentioned in books. I haven't written a book yet, but I'm going to someday.
Called Vinny and the Tangents. Just a book of polls.
Tangents. What happened? It's always better if you have that, that period where Jones starts to slip because he's on drugs or something like that, and the Tangents are ready to break up and they can't stand working with him anymore. That always sets it up nice.
No, Jonesy marries Yoko.
You have here.
She starts showing up in a little box next to Jonesy on the podcast.
She broke up the Beatles.
And then we go to do the podcast, and Jonesy's still in bed. He won't get out of the bed.
Oh yeah, that's right. Everybody's talking about friendship. It's like all we are saying is give Jonesy a chance.
You replaced me with Mark Goldman.
Marissa Charles has made a song for us. She doesn't know how to submit it. Let's see. How do you submit it? Is it posted anywhere? Is it just words on paper? Is it a link? What do you have for us?
Well, if she sent the link, then everyone
the best way you can DM us on X. DM us on X. Right? We're all on X.
Yep.
We're on X. Like we got to say that, right? We're all.
That's the 25-cent movie that Vinny will be doing very shortly.
Is there any harm in giving your public?
Because the screen closes very quickly.
Is there any harm in giving your public email address, or do you prefer not to? Because I'll give mine.
Oh, you want to give your public email address, Jonesy?
I don't mind.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind, but it's 77-5. I'm not giving them any shot that they can come after me. So let's just keep that in mind.
If you send it to this address, I'll forward it to Vinny. GlennJonesRadio@gmail.com. Glenn is with one N, as mommy intended it to be. So it's GlennJonesRadio Gmail.
You could also email the mods. Vinny's mods at Gmail. And it's VINNIES Vinny's mods.
A better bet.
At Gmail.
I don't want to step on any modular toes.
Do you guys remember the Rappin' Duke?
It was horrible.
I don't like the fact that we're being accused of plagiarism, though, Vin.
No, we're not. AI is. It's AI.
Okay.
It's
AI. I don't think it crosses over into
plagiarism. It's not AL. That's all I care about.
No, it's not Al. It's AI. And that's the bad thing about your name these days, Al. Every time I write it, it looks like AI.
I know.
Yeah.
You're 100% correct. That's why
every time I see AI, I think of Al.
And anything I do, I sign it 2 capital letters, capital A, capital L. It's the only way I do it because you can't do it the other way because everyone just goes, what? So
you're real though. You're not AI.
no, I'm not. I'm far from, obviously I'm pretty far from AI from what at the 7 to 5 that I'm losing on now.
Hey, you could replace me with Max Headroom.
That would go, but it would not be the same thing.
Al, you're polling at 8% right now against the lowdown mix and the disco mix.
You're up. So they hate the song so much that 3% more people voted for Al than in the last poll.
That's good. No, that's just it. And none of you are going to be in my music video. That's for darn sure.
All right. So I got to run. Al's got to get to court. Jonesy's got to go to court, but for another reason. But I'm bummed. Anyhow, so where can folks find you, Al?
Well, Vin, I have a new time, okay, on Court TV on Monday, okay, on, the closing argument show with Vinnie. And I am now on 8 to 9 on Monday nights, okay? So it's all the fun at 1 hour earlier. So this way here you can watch the show and then watch the 9 o'clock hour and say, gee, I wish we had Al back at 9. So you can go right from there. And then I'm also on X at Legal Weapon 3. You can get me there.
All right. Jonesy, where can folks find you?
I'm up and down the dial. The best way is the website, glennjones.net. Glenn, again, with one N, glennjones.net.
All right. And finally, before we go, don't forget you can watch me every night, 8 o'clock on Court TV, Monday through Friday. It's live, 2 hours of live true crime, unscripted. No one else does it on television. Then on Sundays at 8 o'clock, Accomplice to Murder, which is my show on Court TV, which, by the way, season 2, still filming episodes. I was just this past week finishing up an episode in Memphis. Had never been to Memphis before. Interesting downtown, really kind of cool. Anyway,
yeah.
That's where the Legals are. That's where my band is now. They're
bingo.
Memphis.
So it's Accomplice to on Sunday nights, also 8 o'clock. That's all the time we have. Say goodbye, Jonesy.
Goodbye, Jonesy.
It's Vinnie and the Tangents, True Crime Podcast. Vinnie has the blue eyes, Al cracks the jokes. Jonesy stays behind his shades, entertaining all the folks. It's Vinnie and the Tangents, True Crime Podcast. Load up all your comments, hit those super chats. Let's go smash that like button, so we can all have a blast. Vinnie, Allan, Jonesy on the job. They're the Sugar Hill Gang of true crime. They're telling stories of days gone by. They take crime and turn into a good old time.